It's the most complex and contentious prohibition issue in the last century. The legal wars continue to rage on, battle lines being erased and redrawn. The march toward legalization of marijuana is underway, while opponents are strengthening their resolve. But it's about more than legalization. It struggles with regulation, standardization, and the impact that this $20 billion industry will have on all of us. The voices on all sides are many, clouding the issues and twisting the truth to aid their cause. We go deep and get to the facts, presenting an agenda-free look at the issues facing our nation. Every day, a new development. Every hour, a new story. Every minute, history in the making. News, interviews, education. We are TNMNews.
Hi, everybody. I'm Todd Dankin with TNMNews, and today I have a very special group of people on the podcast. And first up is Jason Beck, who is the longest-running retail operator in the history of cannabis. He's also known as the highest Republican in America. We all know we need more of those. Jason is the president of cannabis tourism in West Hollywood. He enjoys smoking the best weed in the world and, of course, educating the masses on the negative side effects of boof. That's my boy, Jason Beck. Rico Lamitte, he is known as the dopest dad in the world, and he is the founder of Cannavision Global. It's a decentralized media network, and he enjoys bringing people together from opposite ends of the world to learn about the benefits of literally the greatest plant on earth. Gretchen Gailey, she is a feisty redhead conservative founder of Panoptic Strategies. She's a Washington insider. She has Mayflower roots, and she never backs down from a verbal challenge by pot-loving libs across the aisle. Nicole Buffong, she is the patient and plant medicine advocate founder of Purple Plant Magic. Also, she is Roz McCarthy's right hand on the left coast for M4MM and the Encyclopedia Wednesday mornings on Power 88 in Las Vegas. And of course, Matthew St. Germain, who is a cannabis wizard doing his damnedest to continue the work of the Merry Pranksters and the Brotherhood of Eternal Love, alongside Hogwarts PhD in tripping balls, this co-host of What's Good, the Cannabis Flower and Hash Review Show, and host of Radio Free Earth podcast. He boasts over 33 years in the game for sales, genetics, and cultivation. Gang, welcome to TNMNews.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thank you for having us, Todd.
Yes. Of course. So, guys, you guys collectively make up what's known as High at Nine, right? So, Jason, I know you started this whole thing. Tell me, what is High at Nine?
High at Nine News is America's #1 daily cannabis news show, highlighting all of the recent cannabis news stories that the cannabis industry and others need to know in order to stay educated on the developing cannabis industry that is constantly changing on a day-by-day basis.
Nice. So basically, you talk about weed.
Well, we talk about what's happening in weed along with weed. Yes.
Right. And thank you for inviting me onto your show. It's a really fun time, reading the stories and debating it out with you guys about, what's happening in the world. What do you guys think is the most important thing happening in cannabis right now? Rico, why don't you take that?
I think the most important thing happening in cannabis is the movement towards legalization. And the most important conversations to have is how we all are going to benefit from it, and not just one faction or the other. Right.
Now, you guys have obvious cannabis backgrounds, and you've been in the business for a long time. Tell me, Gretchen, why have you chosen the High at Nine platform to get your message out?
Well, I think one of the #1 things we're all looking for when we do the show every day is to just help educate. And I think we all agree, when we don't agree very much at all, that it takes different perspectives and a lot of different points of views to actually get this industry going. And so by people tuning into our show, they can hear from the highest conservative in the land. They can hear from Saint Germain, who is just an expert at all things psychedelics and basically dealing with the plant. And then you've got folks like Nicole, and we have doctors on the show who can really get into the medical side. And Rico has a financial background. We have folks with policy, lawyers. I mean, we really try and bring as many different viewpoints to the plan as possible so people can leave the show educated and take away and come up with their own thoughts on what's necessary for this industry.
Right. Yeah. I always said good education creates good legislation. Right. And educating people on this fabulous plant is very, very important. It's funny how we still have to do that. Right. With all the information that's out there, it's been legal in 38 states for a long time. And we still have to explain to folks, what it is and what it does and how great it is. So I know that you guys keep both a Republican and a Democratic point of view on your show. Matthew, why is that important?
Thanks, Todd. I think that was something I was even going to add to Gretchen's comment. One of the things I like the most about this show is that we vehemently disagree, but we keep our hearts and our humanity connected, and we're modeling a better behavior. In these last few years with the social media explosion, the polarization that's gone on, a lot of people have drawn up camps. And what we're showing is it's not important that we're all in lockstep agreement, and we actually all learn a lot more by disagreeing. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, I think it's important to disagree and still get along, right?
Yes, and also I say I'm not even a Democrat. I am so far beyond the current versions of Democrat and or Republican. And I think that's another thing that's very important, because what we've seen in the last few years is if you talk shit about Joe Biden, sorry if I'm not supposed to cuss. If you talk about Joe Biden or Donald Trump, all of a sudden everybody assumes, I say something about Donald Trump, it's like, oh, you're a Biden voter. I say something about Biden, it's like, oh, you're just you're a alt-right conservative. And it's like, no, I can actually be transparent about what I think, and I can call out anything I see, either good or bad in either camp. And I think that's another thing we're trying to show is the left-right dichotomy is something that came from the French Revolution, and it literally came from where on a bench the members of the French Revolution sat and their corresponding views. And I think that what we've been seeing is really we have more of a 360 spherical political view where we're like constellations. Like, I love psychedelics, I love freedom, I love nudity at the beach, I love guns. What party's that, right? Jason loves to smoke tons of dope and is not vehemently Christian, at least, and yet loves Republican policies. And so, like, where does he line up? And so we're really modeling the fact that there's a wider world out there outside of the boxes. Right.
So that's kind of the main message of the show, right? Get educated by someone who might look like you and who might not look like you, right?
That's right.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important that we help people understand how to communicate with others who may not agree with their points of view, because they'll have heard the other side from our show.
The other side of the story.
The other side. And there's always more than one side, as we have all seen.
I think it's okay to be passionate too.
Yeah, of course.
I think people get all upset, when people raise their voices sometimes, but if it's all civil, we're all respectful after we make our point.
Right.
It's important for people to see.
That's
what I love about what we do.
That's one of the things I really hope the show transcends across the country going forward in the future, is the fact that you can have a civil discourse with different sides of the aisle, but at the same time, we're all Americans. We all want the best for our communities. We want the best for our industry. We want the best for America overall. And of course, we all agree that cannabis needs to be descheduled.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I think in different ways, though, and that's interesting what Jason said, and what Rico said. Legalization is the most important thing right now, but how do we go about doing that? As an advocate, legalization is okay if the federal government stays out of it, right? We want to deschedule, yes. We want to decriminalize. That's most important. But we don't want it to be like the alcohol industry and regulated to the point where we don't get good product. That is the most important thing. It's medicine. We got to remember that and keep that at the forefront.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'm Todd Dankin with TNMNews, and I am here with the High at 9 News crew. So, Nicole, what really makes the High at 9 News podcast different from all of the other podcasts that are out there, including this one?
Well, I think it's all the different points of views. Like we've talked about already, I think coming together on a platform and talking about your different points of views when it comes to these different news stories. And another thing that I really like is we stay up to date with our news stories. So everything is within 72 hours. And that allows us to just keep the conversation current about what's happening in the industry, globally, and not just domestically, but actually globally, and how it affects us. Because we seem to sometimes just stay focused on what's happening in the United States, like that's the only place that cannabis exists. And so I really love that we get an opportunity to talk about news stories that are current, but are things that are happening all over the world.
Right. Now you have a radio show. So how does your radio show differ from what we do here?
Oh, well, the radio show is based in Las Vegas. So the radio show kind of focuses on what's happening in Las Vegas. And since there's a lot of things happening in Nevada right now with the consumption lounge licenses and those kind of things, I stay more current to what is happening in the state of Nevada with that show.
Right. Now, sometimes you invite some of your viewers and some of your listeners to speak on the show. Tell me something where a viewer really added some really thought-provoking comment or really had a memorable moment. Anybody?
Sean Kiernan from Weed for Warriors provides a lot of memorable moments. He's got a big personality. Yeah. He's got a lot to share from a veteran's perspective. He does a lot of good work advocating, and I find that I learn a little bit from him, and he definitely stirs the pot every time he gets on. He's not afraid to throw around an F word.
Yeah, that's for sure. I love Sean for those reasons. You know, he's just outspoken, speaks his mind, and there's no lying in Sean. You know, that's what I love about Sean. He's just an in-your-face guy who, you know, really wants to change the world. You know, and I believe he will. That's for sure.
There's that passion.
I like it when our guests are part of the news story. So it's always fun when we get to hear from the people that are quoted in news stories directly, and they get to kind of give us an inside perspective on why they were part of this story and how they came to be a part of this story. I think that's always great.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you reach out to the folks that are in the news stories to get comments. That's awesome.
Yeah, I always try to reach out to them and give them a chance to give their take on it. Like, especially, I think a good example of that is what we were seeing and hearing all on national media about what was going on in Virginia. And we brought on Kaya Morton, who's down there. She's with Normal on the ground there, and she has a huge coalition. And she told us, like, no, it's not what you hear on on the national news. We're fighting our own battles down here, and we thought it was the Democrats versus the Republicans, but it wasn't down there. And just hearing stuff from a ground perspective just lets you know that, you know, we have further reach, and we're willing to reach out to people who won't be heard. Right.
No, that's important. It's a great feature to really get the story from the horse's mouth, you know, so to say, you know, right?
Yeah.
Jay, what's the goal of the show? What's the ultimate goal? What are you trying to accomplish?
I think the ultimate goal is just to really get people communicating again, get people back to the table, regardless of what your political ideology is or whatnot. But get back to the table and really have these discussions with family members, with in your community and whatnot, and just show a positive look that people with differentiating positions on different topics can all still be civil, still be friends, still go out and go have fun and party together, or whatever it is that the people want to do together, just to show that there is still unity in being an American.
Right. And you know, I think that's what weed is all about, right? It brings people together, right?
100%. Exactly right. Exactly right.
You know,
cannabis. I've smoked cannabis with people from almost every single probably spectrum that you could ever classify someone within. And the one thing that we all have in common is our love for cannabis.
Right.
And I would say that to be a part of the show, you don't also have to consume weed. I am one of the folks on the show who is not a regular consumer of the product. However, I've been around the industry. I've been around advocates. I've been around people who desperately need this plant. And that is truly what has brought me into the fight for cannabis. You don't have to sit around in a circle and puff, puff, pass every day to be a part of this industry or to make a difference in this industry. It's important to have people from all aspects around the table so people can speak to those, especially in Washington, who do not see themselves as part of this discussion. Right. Rico and I were discussing this just the other day after the show about lawmakers and what's their problem, just in general. And I told him I truly believe that lawmakers in Washington are ignorant. They just don't understand the industry. They don't understand the medicine. This is not something they deal with on a day-to-day basis. So, I had a few meetings this week on the Hill and trying to talk to people about tax policy when they don't even understand that this plant is being taxed at every level of the supply chain. And they're like, oh, I'm like, come on, guys, because it's a state issue right now. So the feds aren't tapped in at all to what is going on. And so it's so important that people get the chance to come and listen to our show and hear about the news and what's going on. And, what we think they should be taking home with them to their lawmakers to help try and move things forward.
Right. I always find it fascinating, Gretchen, that when people don't smoke weed or don't eat edibles or whatever, don't partake, and they're still such a staunch advocate for, cannabis rights. Is it more of a freedom thing for you, or what drives you besides just knowing people that need cannabis?
I mean, honestly, what got me into the fight was a dear friend in stage 4 cancer who was just looking for some quality of life and looking not to be doped up on, horse tranquilizers till the end of her life. But she did, number one, could not get it in the state where she was. She was scared to death of what am I do to her, because she was of a generation that's so reefer madness. She was like, if I take this, what's going to happen? I'm like, you're going to feel better. And she's like, am I going to be high? And I'm like, no, I'll take it with you, whatever I have to do. And I think that's the entrance story that we see for a lot of people who don't consume. It's a loved one who needs it medically. So I have definitely gotten in more on the medical side, and being more involved in advocating for the industry has brought me around to see more of the social justice side, which is clearly something that I had not been exposed to from my side of the aisle, or having to deal with in my regular life. And so that's just part of one of the benefits of this show, is that we all get to see those different perspectives.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's I've interviewed tons of CEOs and advocates and politicians that are cannabis advocates, and 100% of them joined the cannabis movement because either they or a loved one got sick and needed some sort of alternative medicine because, like you said, I don't want to take horse tranquilizers. I'd like to just maybe smoke a joint and feel good about my life for 5 minutes, right? So on the other side of the spectrum is Matthew. You've been in the business for 33 years, right? Growing, crossing genetics and doing all kinds of fun stuff. And so tell me how that experience, led you here, and what you plan to do with, your platform here at High at None.
Yes, sir. So here goes a digression into a digression into a digression. I had hippie parents, and so I rebelled by becoming Alex P. Keaton, because you can't smoke dope and listen to Led Zeppelin when that's what your parents are doing when they're cleaning up the house on Saturday, right? So I got into Ronald Reagan. I also had at the same time transitioned from private school to public school in high school. And I was really picked on for being intelligent and sensitive and really spiritual and focused on nature. Then all of a sudden I found wrestling and I became a varsity wrestler, and then I started fighting, and like, I'm a tiny guy. I'm 5'6" on a good day, but I have a tremendous propensity for violence. And all of a sudden I went from being judged and called some really horrible names and kind of ostracized to being everybody's hero because I could hurt people. And so my brain spun, and I got on this track that a lot of people in America have been conditioned to, where it's, America, they hate us for our freedom, and I'm going to win the game through ego-based domination, both physically and intellectually. And for myself, I was on a track to go get a political science degree so that I could immediately get into the officer corps, so I could get into the Army Rangers or Delta Force or BUDS training and murder people for America, because I'm really good at it.
Right.
However, my parents had a lot of radical books, and I had always read about the work of Timothy Leary, Ram Dass, and the psychedelic Renaissance and Revolution. So I decided I'd try LSD once. Tried the LSD. It showed me that my parents were right about everything. You can't murder your way to peace and freedom. And it set me on a completely different track. And so what I was doing was contemplating my life and thinking about what I was going to do and trying to find a new way forward. And one of the things that I had been heavily into is asymmetrical warfare. The U.S. and most major powers have lost the majority of the wars in the 20th century due to asymmetrical warfare. And that means when people invade your country and they have tanks and missiles and radar and the most up-to-date systems, what you use is blending in with the populace and pit traps and all of these means, because you can't meet them symmetrically, you meet them asymmetrically. And I developed my own concept of asymmetrical warfare, which is the current powers that be are destroying the world through the rape of our resources and the having the boot on the necks of the people. And I was going to conduct a new type of asymmetrical warfare wherein I was going to make psychedelics available and grow plants to fight this war for the side that I believe in.
Right.
And that goes to the High at Nine News. One of the biggest reasons I'm there is cannabis and psychedelics, but especially cannabis, are enmeshed with a couple of things. Number one, institutionalized white supremacy. Cannabis was made illegal by William Randolph Hearst, feeding on the fear of white people. The Christian religion, unfortunately, this is going to make a lot of people mad. There's an entrenched history of millennia of white supremacy and anger and hostility at Jewish people and people of color ingrained in the Christian religion. And William Randolph Hearst mined that deeply in order to make cannabis illegal, because he had huge stands of timber in the Pacific Northwest and he was cutting them all down to make newspaper print. And he owned a bunch of newspapers all over the country. And hemp and this new machinery called a decorticator that broke down the inner herd of the hemp plant was going to basically make his tree stands worthless, because all newspaper was going to be moved to hemp. At the same time, the Dow company got the patent for nylon. At that time, almost every weatherproofing, every rope used in maritime expeditions, everything was made from hemp. Yep. Hemp, because it's a natural plant, can't be patented, so we can all compete freely in the marketplace with hemp sales. Nylon, being patentable, gives Dow a complete lock on fabric, and nylon was only the beginning. Dow had all these patents for all these petrochemicals, and so in order to protect these patents, get hemp out of the marketplace, they aligned with William Randolph Hearst, using this fear of mostly Black and Mexican people. They made cannabis illegal.
Yeah, they were smoking pot and raping white women, right? That was the story.
Sir. Yes, sir. And furthermore, Haldeman and a couple people in Nixon's administration came out and admitted that they used the creation of the war on drugs to fight against the Black Panthers, the American Indian Movement, the Students for a Democratic Society, the Weather Underground, and all of these movements that were civil rights and free speech and freedom and anti-war and peace movements. And because they were protected by our Bill of Rights, they had to find another way to go after them. And the nexus was cannabis. And so they used cannabis in the war on drugs to continue the war in Vietnam and continue the spending of the fascist military industrial complex. And so that's a big reason why I'm on the High at Nine News, because I really ache for the opportunity, because I think most people, because of the way of the world, how everyone's so deeply enmeshed, the destruction of our public school system, a lot of people don't even have a light on the terrain that we're fighting. And I like to have the opportunity daily or weekly to shine a light on what's actually going on and hit people to stuff like, have you ever Googled the free market versus capitalism? Because they're not the same thing. Right. Have you ever Googled the Black Panthers free breakfast and lunch program and their free library program in Oakland? Because that's something amazing. And when you start to, what I see is when people are educated and see and reach out to other perspectives, their worldview grows. And I think that's the way, by building bridges together, that we're going to really solve this thing, because I think cannabis is a linchpin and a nexus, but really it comes down to all of us realizing that we're all from here, which means we're all a family. And so we should begin relating to each other as a family.
I agree with that 100%. You know, we all have way more in common than we have different, right? You know, we're all humans, we're all in the human race, and all we seem to want to focus on is the differences. You know, why aren't you like me? Why aren't, you know, and my God's better than your God, my drug's better than your drug, you know, all of those, my political party is better than your political party. It's interesting how us as humans, we're all on a team, right? We're you know, almost tribal based, right? And we have to root for our team. Why do you think society is like that?
I'll take that one. I think capitalism.
Really? Just because people want to make money?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, people want other people's shit, right? I think like
do people want other people's shit, or do they want the same shit that other people have?
There's a little bit of
Uh,
nuance.
I think
I'll
you
go
worded
with
that way better right there, Todd.
there's a little bit of nuance there. Some people want other people's shit because they can't have it, and then
Right.
others want to be on equal footing, right? And since we just have to meet in the middle there, and I think the crux of everything that we do on High at Nine News comes from three different angles, right? Like the industry, in my mind, is a three-legged stool. You have wellness, business, and lifestyle. At the root of everything, it's about wellness, right?
Right.
But because we live in a capitalist society, we need the business aspect of it, right? But because it's been prohibited in our nation for over 100 years, we need that lifestyle side. We need the community side because they've been harboring this plant. They've been really exposing themselves, their families, their livelihoods to continue the legacy of this great plant and its roots and bring it to where we are today. And I think we really need to get off of those, I'm on this side, I'm on that side, meet somewhere in the middle. But I think you cannot do that with the wrongs that were done on the communities.
So it's too late. We're just doomed.
No, I don't think we're doomed at all.
Right.
I just think we're going to see a very, very, very seismic shift going forward on both ends. The people that were against the plant for so long, they're going to see the economic opportunity, and they're going to see how it can help their loved ones. The people who have been for it for so long are going to realize that, like, none of us are about that assassination life, right? So we have. I hope so. None of us, on here. I hope we're not. But so we're gonna have to learn to work within this system and to change it from within, right? And so we need to come together on those two levels. And the people that are like staunch supporters of business and the economic state that America's in, that the world is in, they're gonna have to cede some of that control to the wellness and the community crowds in order for this thing to work, right?
Agreed.
And it's going to have to happen that way, or we're just gonna be stuck in this purgatorial state that we've been in for like the last 10 years.
And I think High at Nine brings those different perspectives to remind folks, like, it's great, business is great, and capitalism is okay to an extent. But if we want to see small craft growers survive in the next 10 years, if we want to see brands that are based on wellness survive, then it's going to be up to us, the consumers. If we leave it up to the government, if we leave it up to these leaders and corporations to make those decisions for us, then we are going to lose them. And we're going to lose part of that culture that has kept it alive all these years. And that's something that I'm staunchly advocate for, is because I definitely don't want my only option of regulated flower to be Walmart weed in 10 years from now. I definitely want to be able to go to a farmer's market and buy my flower the same way I buy my food. And it might not be the most popular way to go, but it's definitely, it's healthy to still have the option.
Sure. How far do you think we are away from a farmer's market dispensary?
I mean, I think California is probably going to be the first state to do something like that, just because there's so many there and because the market is slowly imploding on itself. Like it's not sustainable the way that it's going. And I think that would be probably the first step in the advocacy, or advocates saying, look, this is how we're going to make this industry survive here. Let us go back to the small craft growers and allow them to thrive. Stop putting so much regulation and stipulations on them, and just allow people to be able to choose who and how they want to buy their flower.
Right. Yeah,
California has.
Todd,
California actually has passed legislation that would allow for the farmers market type of style of direct to consumer for some of our craft outdoor cultivators or greenhouse providers that are mainly from the Emerald Triangle, Mendocino County, Trinity County, and Humboldt County areas to be able to do that. I believe, if I remember correctly, they are allowed 3 or 4 events per year that allow them to be able to do that under the current legislation passed.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I mean, it makes total sense. And, no one's going to sell to kids. No one's, weed's too expensive to give to your kids, don't you think?
Yeah,
you know, right?
And I think I think there's going to be two markets. That's the only way this thing is going to go forward. There's plenty of people who only buy their groceries at the grocery market, right? At the supermarket,
Right.
And there's plenty of us who have woken up later on in life and like, yo, all these recalls and everything, this mass-produced food and all these chemicals and shit that are pumped into our food ain't that good for us.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have people like Mike that might start off on that, that pharmacy or big box weed, and they're like, okay, this isn't that great. Once they get educated, they're gonna go more towards the farmers market model. I think that's
it definitely makes sense. What I think is going to happen is that, and we see it happening now, is giant corporations are really sucking up all of these smaller grows and creating this conglomerate of weed. I think that that's going to happen. And then when federal legalization happens and we can finally import and export, I think all of these guys are going to go out of business because everything's going to come out of Colombia because it costs like $5 a pound to grow instead of, $600 a pound to grow. And quite honestly, people in the United States won't be able to compete, with countries like Colombia. And then if I was a manufacturer, I'm not going to, grow it, make it, sell it. I'm going to import it, put it into a pen or put it into some product, right? And then sell it like they do with all of their other ingredients. What do you guys think is going to happen when finally federal legalization happens?
Well, number
Todd,
one,
check this out. Hold on, Gretchen. Let me take this just for a second.
I don't agree with anything that was just said in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah,
no, me either.
I don't
So
either.
where I wanted to start is California just lost over 3 million square feet of cultivation. 70% of that was from large scale actors. I got a complete breakdown from a friend who has it was I think 14% was small farmers this year that actually gave up their permits. One of the biggest things, and this speaks to what Nicole was saying as well, and what this conversation is, and it goes back to capitalism, right? Like the cannabis economy has been flourishing for so long because it has been a free market. And a free market means there's a low barrier to entry and everyone can exchange goods and services.
Yeah.
The moment legalization came, Gavin Newsom, who was put into business with a $5 million check from the Getty family, right? That's how he became an entrepreneur. He's bought from the beginning. He immediately changed the regulations to favor capitalism. And what we saw is Flocana and Leaf Boxcar and Loud Pack and Sessions and all of these guys who are entrepreneurs because their dad gave them a check come in and do the thing capitalists do. And what capitalists do is they go, oh, here's a thriving market that totally works and has an equilibrium. Look at this spreadsheet. If I just write like 6 zeros behind all these numbers, I win the game. Right. And so you have like my friends at Leaf who blew it and built a $14 million distillate extraction facility. And you got all these guys in Santa Barbara who just knew that, weed guys like me are idiots and they can just write down the numbers and grow 50 acres, of cannabis. That's going to be way better than mine because, they have $60,000 watches on. Right. And what we've seen in this retrenchment and this bottom falling out of the cannabis industry is this. The people who got into weed in California to become millionaires and billionaires and for generational wealth have all lost their asses in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
The people who got into cannabis or were into cannabis because they love the cannabis plant and they wanted to make a humble living and walk with the cannabis plant and actually care about the quality of the cannabis plant and the cannabis community are thriving. And one of the things I've been saying that's been really upsetting a lot of people is that a lot of the folks in the Emerald Triangle, they got off track. And maybe some of them grew weed for a lifestyle, but dude, a lot of them just grew weed to make money. And so they could unplug from the system, and the system's bullshit. So I'm in solidarity with them. Right. But those folks began to actually broadcast hostility towards the cannabis market. Like, you're sour diesel. Oh, you're OG. And instead of realizing how the market was changing and trying to, again, continue to walk with it, they also were like, I'm just going to grow my weed and stay up on the hill. Screw all these people. Oh, buyers are this, and no, consumers are this, and custies and all this type of stuff. And so they're finding themselves outside of the system and the process and the vibe and the flow because they didn't make the effort to stay in. Conversely, I have friends who have off-label 8-lighters. I have friends who are selling ounces and pounds on the daily. I have friends who have legal businesses with 100 lights or less, and they're all surviving. They're paying their bills. They're living inside. They're feeding their kids. They get to go on vacation. And I think this is one of the things that the cannabis plant and then psychedelics are going to do, is they're going to continue to disrupt the capitalist ethos, because at the very heart of these, especially the plants and the fungi, they are living beings, and the heart of them is a message. And it's this message that we've all been sharing and talking about, and they will continue to defy widgetization and corporatization for their entire life. Sorry, I go ahead, Gretchen.
Oh no, that was great, Gretchen. I can't wait to hear Jeff say. You're over there steaming. I think I see
sigh.
coming out of you.
I do believe that there will be a place in the industry moving forward for craft cannabis or boutique cannabis, whatever you want to call the smaller producers. I do believe that they will still exist. If we follow the lead of the federal government, which hasn't been much of one, we're definitely going to be going down much more of a pharmaceutical path. I think you are going to see medical cannabis is going to be the priority. We already know that if big tobacco wanted to buy cannabis, they can. I forget who it is. It might be Altria. I don't remember. Philip Morris. I don't remember which one it is. Altria.
Yeah. Altria.
Easy killers. You don't know what I'm saying. Could buy up the entire industry right now with like petty cash. They have plenty of money to destroy cannabis. Nobody has to wait for legalization. And these folks have already been buying into the industry already. So to think that, things are going to come together in the free market and we're going to have, farmers market, I'm sorry. I don't operate in pipe dreams. I operate in reality. You are going to see a major crackdown coming from regulators. I think you're going to see a drug war 3.0 come into this country soon, if they really try and enforce legal markets. What I would love to see, but I am not in the majority, would be a decriminalization on the federal level. And I would like to see a national medical market. That's what I would like to see. And I think that's the correct path forward for this. But Washington is not that bright. So we shall see.
Don't we risk then Pfizer running the cannabis business?
Pfizer's going to be running the cannabis business, and to pretend that they're not going to be is crazy. These people got the money, they're going to do it.
They made the first big leap with the acquisition of Arena Pharmaceuticals.
We need to really be talking to folks in the nutraceutical space to figure out how we can separate the two, have two paths. So you can still have cannabis for lifestyle needs. And if you want to take full spectrum and how it's all going to work, because that's not how pharma is going to work at all. They're going to isolate it and try and figure out. And frankly, I know Nicole calls it Walmart weed and all that. I get what she's saying, but you need that for scalable, replicable medicines. You need to be able to break this down and reproduce this on a map. Don't look at me like that, Matsu. Thanks, Jermaine. I can see you.
Oh yeah, I got a camera.
But I mean, when it comes to making medicine that consumers can trust to know that they're going to get the same effects every time. I mean, we talk about it every day in this industry about labs that are faking their testing. People don't know what's in their products. I mean, I know we all talk about a lack of regulation, but I don't think we're talking about a lack of consumer safety or a lack of understanding what people are getting. I mean, and you're going to need greater oversight than what the states are providing to pull that off.
And GW Pharmaceuticals is already in the game. They're the creators of Epidiolex, which is the first FDA approved cannabis derived drug on the market. And so she's absolutely right. When we're thinking about a federal national program that is going to come into the marketplace and benefit patients, because that's who we're advocating for. That's who we're fighting for. Because everyone is a patient that uses this plant. They just don't realize it most of the time. But I think that it's going to be up to us, the consumers. If we leave it up to the government, if we leave it up to Philip Morris and Altria, they're all about the money. It's about profits for them, not about the people. And so eventually, if we decided we're not going to buy any more corporate weed, us, the consumers, then there might be a shift. Then they're going to say, okay, this is not working. What we're growing is not working. It's not good product. Let's shift and change the way that we grow, what kind of product we produce and put out into the marketplace. And then maybe we can survive. But if we, the consumer, are not saying anything, then they're going to continue to do and feed us whatever they choose to.
Right. It's an interesting product, cannabis, because to some people it's morphine, right? And to other people, it's a glass of wine, right? So how do you make that distinction, right? Of what we're looking to do it recreationally and just to relax and to have a good time and be in the culture, and separate it from the the patients who really need this plant to survive.
I think it's a good idea to have morphine that you can ingest like wine. What's wrong with that? Right? What's wrong with enjoying getting better?
No, I'm on board.
Yeah.
But there is this separation of adult use and medical, and
So I'm with Rico on this, and we got to again look back to like the puritanical Protestant roots of America and the fact that dancing was evil and any type of enjoyment was evil. And the folks who wear the suits that are in charge, like, they're so square, and it's not to their, it's not their fault, but to be in the position they are in now, they had to live a life that kept them from being exposed to any of these realities, right?
Yeah.
Oh shit, I'm high. I just forgot what we were talking about.
Well, and
Oh yeah. So here's the thing. I wanted to say this, so I'm glad you said this, Rico, because I was thinking this. Our last comment: medical cannabis has huge medical benefit to some people, but the amount of people that cannabis has a huge medical benefit to really pales in comparison to the amount of people who are social smokers.
Yeah.
The medical play in California was an end around the illegality of
legalization
cannabis.
play. Yeah, it was
it was not about medical usage.
That's right.
And
That's
anyone telling themselves that is totally bullshitting themselves. And here's the deal: when I got my first medical card, I went to this doctor in Fort Bragg. The dude was nuts. He had AIDS. He was awesome. He had this huge mohawk. And we took turns being in the back seat of my friend's Suburban, and the doctor was back there. Each one of us would get in the back seat of the Suburban and tell the doctor our fake issue, and he'd be like, "Word!" Like, my friend A-Dog gets in the back of the car. He gets out like almost immediately. We were like, "What happened, dude?" And he's like, "He signed my thing." And I said, "What'd you do?" He's like, "I just looked at him until he signed it." And I was like, "All right, cool." And then we went and grew a bunch of weed, right? And so part of the
printer in the back seat and print up a card for you.
No, he already had them printed. He just signed them off. Boom, bam.
Gotcha.
But so a big part of this is the fact that it goes back to this thought that pleasure has to be bad.
Right.
And one of the things I think we all agree and we need to share is that, like, it's okay. Children start by like holding their breath or having their friends swing them around. Like, everyone wants to get high. Yeah. Everyone has a feeling in their heart that there's more to life than just a three-dimensional reality we see. And the more we can find ways for people to embrace these altered states in healthy ways with mentorship and positive modeling, then I think the less fallback and traumatic fallout we're going to have from people.
Yeah, I
it's
think
education.
those are really great points. You're right, and education. That's right. I think those are really great points, and really strong, versions of how it should be. That's for sure.
Todd, just to go back on your topic, because you were saying earlier you believe that cannabis is going to be imported from Colombia and a lot of the industry will be washed up. Well, I firmly disagree with that we're going to be importing cannabis from Colombia, because I think when we come to that point, we will place such high restrictions on the product that would be able to be imported into the US that none of the product in Colombia would ever meet those type of regulatory standards to be able to be imported into the US. And mainly because under President Trump, he put cannabis into NAFTA 2.0. And so basically cannabis is already able to be exported from Mexico to the US and then also into Canada. Canada does charge a 6% importation tax to Canada, but that framework already exists in NAFTA 2.0 already. And so I think Mexico would be the dominant player as far as scalability, cost production, to be able to offer things at a much lower price than what Americans would be able to produce because of our extravagant labor laws.
And then what's going to happen?
I agree with
culture law, and everybody say they took our jobs. They took our jobs.
Yeah, right. It's automation taking jobs. It's not immigrants.
Well, and I think an important thing for us to also look at moving forward federally, and Nicole, and I'm sure Matthew can speak to this, that pharmaceuticals come from plants. We get our supplements, they come from plants. There are things that are supplements and pharmaceuticals. We need to figure out a pathway that makes sense so this plant can be used in the way that a person deems necessary. So it is their glass of wine at night, or it's the morphine they need to get through the day. I mean, that's what they really need to be looking at this as.
Right.
Well,
just to your point
pharmaceutical
about-
versions are synthetic versions, right? So you've got, you have a drug like Epidiolex that's on the marketplace that is pharmaceutical grade version of CBD or cannabidiol. But then you also have Marinol and Canatol and Dronabinol, which are completely synthetic versions of the plant. And in the mind of pharmaceutical company and many people who are in opposition of legalizing cannabis for medical use, that this is a more safer version to use the synthetic version of the cannabis
laboratory. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But clearly the nutraceutical industry has been able to convince the powers that be that yes, you can get echinacea in this form, you can get it over here. But that's what we need to be doing with cannabis.
I think I agree with you wholeheartedly on that, on the nutraceutical angle, Gretchen. We need to rely on that and be able to sell products at GNC.
Yeah. No, for sure.
No.
There's the dispensary owner, right?
Yeah, cannabis can strictly only be sold in a dispensary or through a delivery service. Yeah, I'm a big.
No, don't worry, Jay. You can always live at my house when the dispensary's closed, bro.
Let me just say this.
I got you.
I do not believe ever that you're ever going to be able to walk into a Walgreens or a Walmart and purchase.
I'm not talking about Walmart. No. That's not what we're talking about.
2 years.
I don't know if you look.
See, all the same thing.
Okay, Jason, I got a question for you.
Retail,
Jason, I got a question for you. I got a question for you as a dispensary owner. If we preach all the time is that this is just a plant, why should it not be sold as just a plant? Why do you need it to be in a special dispensary, a special store for consumers to get it?
Because that is how the distribution model has been set up. That's what people are already.
Why is it got to stay that way? The model's also been set up that this plant is illegal.
Then
So
why
that
do
should
people
stay in
have
place?
to go to grocery stores to buy their groceries, Gretchen? It's the same.
They don't. They can go to farmers markets. They can go all
They can get
sorts
it
of
from
places to get
Amazon.com.
it.
Not if they don't have a farmers market anywhere near them, Gretchen. They can't.
That's true.
Oh, the point, Jason, back to my point. Why does this plant that we are all saying should be available to the masses have to be sold in such a restricted manner?
I'm all for it being to the masses, but at the same time, I'm totally against it being sold at traditional big box stores or liquor stores or.
And my question is
else.
why?
You need to have. Why? Because that is how the whole framework of what we have set. I don't mind there being millions of stores to sell cannabis, but I do believe that you need to go through the proper regulatory hurdles that everyone else has gone through in order to be able to sell cannabis.
That still is not an answer.
The closest regulatory model
that is an answer
would be tobacco. Tobacco is a psychoactive plant.
Yep.
You don't smoke the flowers, but you do smoke the leaves of it. And if we look at tobacco, it's available everywhere. And so I think that's really the closest model that we have.
Coffee too. Coffee's a psychoactive plant.
Yeah, coffee.
Yeah. I mean, shit, let's roll them all down, right? Echinacea, Gretchen. You know, all of these plants are either psychoactive or have some sort of benefit, and eventually they're available everywhere. The reason why for dispensaries is the continued culture war between, you know, uptight establishment America and us freaks. You know, that's really the only reason for the majority of the overtaxation, for the dispensary model, for all of this. It's because they're always trying to stigmatize it and castigate it and cast it in a somewhat unhealthy light and keep it kind of over there. But eventually, like, it'll be everywhere, dude. Look at the porn stores, bro. Those porn used to get a prison sentence in the South. And now, if you drive to the South, dude, 2 to 5 miles before every single city or town, there's a gigantic porn store, dude. Like a porn barn. It's insane.
Right.
And then why do you think,
Jason, that Walgreens signs all have green crosses on them now?
Oh, really?
That's in Europe.
No, they're here. They're in Vegas, LA. They're everywhere. Look, next time you drive by a Walgreens,
they don't have the green crosses here in LA. I haven't seen any of those yet.
They got 2 down here in South Central. Yep.
Yeah, they're just subtly putting them up.
They have green crosses.
That's it. Yep. They do this sprinkling. They're sprinkling on the mind fuck, bro. That's what they're fucking doing. That's what they're doing. They're inching. You can get used to it, and then next thing you know, it's all gonna be green. And then the next thing, they're selling all the weed now, and you're out of business.
It's fine. You can live in my house.
It's just funny because they all do that in Europe and all throughout the EU. Every single store has has a little green cross sitting outside.
New World Order, man.
Yeah, right.
That already happened.
Yeah, and I am definitely not a globalist.
No, that's for sure. Yeah, I'm Todd Dankin with TNM News, and I'm here with the High at 9 News crew. Guys, what's the craziest story you've delivered on High at 9 News?
Canada, the fact that they issued a medical, one of the medical cannabis providers, they issued them a license to grow, manufacture, and import and sell cocaine.
I think one of my favorites was Dog Face. I don't remember what he did, but that just do you remember the Dog Face story?
Got busted for weed. Yeah,
he drank cranberry juice and rode a skateboard.
Yeah.
I love the stupid celebrity ones. They're good.
Right.
I think my favorite was the most recent one I had with Ric Flair and the dick pills. And I love that one. I thought was the craziest thing about it was him just openly saying that I live in Florida and it's all medical down here. And old guys like me, listen, I don't know what I'm talking about. He like said that mid-interview. I'm not that knowledgeable about it, but this thing's gonna fly off the shelves. It's like this is the next stage. This is where we are. We're real pro wrestlers that have made millions of fucking dollars selling a bunch of bullshit to the elderly. That's where we are. And these motherfuckers are coming out in the open and just saying that. And I thought that was just the craziest fucking thing to me. Not even the penis pills part of it. The fact that somebody famous, I don't know shit about what I'm saying, but I know this thing is gonna sell like crazy
because my name is on it. I think one of my the craziest stories recently that I did actually was just last week, and that was learning that Canada is selling weed in Jamaica. It's so ludicrous. There are Rastafarian tribes in Jamaica still trying to get licenses, still trying to become a part of the legal landscape there in the country. And some greedy politician decided that it was a good idea to allow Canadians to sell their weed in Jamaica.
Right.
And Todd, that is definitely one of the negative side effects of smoking booth, because all Canadian weed is total booth. No one should be able to smoke it.
Yes.
No one ever, not even Canadians?
Not even Canadians.
Not even Canadians.
They should be importing American weed. But yeah, just to take your story a little further, Nicole, it's just very sad what's happening to Jamaica across the board.
Right.
They made it illegal for kids to have dreadlocks in schools in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Yes. Last year.
Yeah. No, well, and this is something.
Yes.
This is something this is a cultural thing that has been happening throughout the Caribbean, but it was more like in the 60s and 70s where they literally outlawed rastas and dreadlocks. Like if you were wearing any of the colors, you were allowed to be killed in order to save society. And so that was a mentality that had stopped like mid 80s, early 90s. It almost took about 30 years, but it's coming back. It's almost like it's culturally coming back because of the ignorance around the lifestyle of being a Rastafarian. And then there are not many leaders within elected officials that are wearing and supporting the Rastafarian culture. And something for me that is very personal. My father was a Rastafarian. I am first generation American, both my parents being from the Caribbean. I understand this history and I recognize how damaging it can be to the culture of cannabis, because Rastafarian tribes are the ones that have kept the genetics alive for the last 100 years throughout the Caribbean and in Africa. A lot of them decided that they were going to risk their lives, risk their land, risk their livelihood, their families, and move and isolate themselves and leave with the plant, because they understood how important and how valuable the plant is to their culture and to their religious beliefs. And so they left society with the plant, kept it alive, kept the genetics alive. And now 100 years later or 50 years later, depending on what country you're in, they have decided, some of them have decided to come out and be public about their stories and bring the plant with them and bring the genetics with them. And in some cases, instead of being embraced and being honored for all the work and all that they sacrificed, they are still being criminalized. They are still being demonized. And it just hurts to know that this is still happening.
Nicole, it's like their culture is being stripped from them and being sold back to them.
Yes.
Right? Stripped, sanitized, and sold right back to them.
Yes.
Yeah, it is weird. It is strange how governments make those weird decisions. Like all the lettuce that we grow in California, 60% of it gets exported to Canada and Mexico, and the Mexican lettuce gets exported here. It just doesn't make any sense.
This is why, just like Jason, I'm against globalization. Forced globalization, I should say.
Right.
Like if it makes zero sense. A lot of these trade lines, a lot of these trade routes, I should say, and we need to stay local, buy local, but we should have the option, if you want to have some Canadian boof, if that's what you so choose to put in your fucking pipe and smoke, you should have that option.
Right.
That's what real freedom is about. That's what the real freedom market is all about. And we need to bring it back to that.
Yeah. So when do you guys think we will have federal legalization? Is it a couple of years away, or are we still a decade away?
I think it's going to be right before or right after the 2024 election.
Interesting. So whoever wins is going to do it, or someone's going to campaign on it?
I think it definitely will be campaigned on, but if Joe Biden does not legalize before the election, we're going to get a Republican president.
I must disagree with my friend Rico here.
Me too.
I can see people campaigning on the issue. I don't see people campaigning on legalization. I can see them campaigning on smaller, like Joe Biden had done when he said, he's going to let people out of jail, and he lied about that. And it's smaller implications. Me personally, I have said this, and I will continue to stand by this. I don't think there will ever be a vote on the House or Senate floor to legalize cannabis recreationally. I think that we are going to see it through the Supreme Court. I think we're going to see it through HHS. I think we're going to see it through some other pathway than Congress, because ain't jack nothing getting done in Congress. And these guys have shown their appetite to pass any type of cannabis legalization. Any cannabis bill. I mean, sure, it makes it out of the House, but then it dies immediately. So the last thing I would look for is legalization coming out of our Congress. To that regard, you're going to need a very cannabis friendly president to push this through. And that ain't Joe Biden. I don't, as much as Jason Beck says Trump is coming back, I pray he's wrong. I don't think it's Trump. It's definitely not
2024.
Yeah. So I think we would have to see a brand new candidate emerge who's extremely cannabis friendly to see something happen anytime.
Gavin Newsom?
No.
I think y'all have proven he is not that cannabis friendly.
Gavin Newsom has the same problem as Trump, and
well,
that's a lack of integrity. When he was running for re-election as mayor of San Francisco, he cheated on his wife with his best friend's wife. Fuck
Kimberly
that dude
Guilfoyle,
forever.
right? Kimberly Guilfoyle is his ex-wife.
Dude, yeah, I think so, right?
She is the ex-wife and
Yeah,
now the
yes,
fiance
yes.
of good old Don Jr. Did they get married yet, or are they still engaged?
I just would love to see. I would love
They're
to
still
see
engaged.
integrity as a primary rubric for who gets elected.
Yeah,
Well,
it is.
I can dream.
Todd.
Yeah.
Todd, to go back to your question, the reality of it is that anyone that tells you that they know when federal legalization is going to happen, descheduling is going to happen, is doing nothing but lying to you, because no one knows. The reality of it is that we've always used 5-10 years, and then as soon as that 5-10 years comes up, we just kick the can to say another 5-10 years, and that's the basic kind of canned answer that everyone always likes to say. But the more important thing is not necessarily when cannabis is descheduled or legalization happens, however you want to word it, but the more important thing is the how that happens and how we're able to commence commerce going forward under that type of structure. Are we going to have something where commerce is hampered by state lines artificially, which keeps market prices high and access for patients low? Or are we going to have something that's more with interstate trade, where all of a sudden California is the number one brand in cannabis in the entire world, and Americans all across the country and the world are able to purchase California cannabis, whether that's a direct to consumer model or a shipping through other dispensaries, similar to like the alcohol type of model. That is the more important thing, not the necessarily when it happens, but the how it happens.
Well,
Yeah,
and
I think interstate commerce is crucial to the cannabis industry for exactly those reasons. You know, some states don't want to grow it. That's okay. The residents should still be able to get some.
Look at all other agricultural commodities, and that's how people should be looking at cannabis, as agricultural commodity. And the reality is, you have Idaho that grows potatoes because their environment is the most conducive for growing potatoes. California happens to have the most conducive environment for producing high grade cannabis, and that's just
to that point, I think that federal legalization is also going to come about when we're looking at other markets. Africa is conducive to growing cannabis outdoors and really good cannabis, but Africa, the continent of Africa, has not been able to do that, has not been able to participate. And so once we start unlocking some of these other countries that are more conducive because of their environment to growing the plant, and we start to see their economies flourish, we start to see them really expand on what the plant can actually do medicinally for people. We don't even know what good old Sudan weed or good old South Africa weed is, because we don't know what it can do yet. But as those countries start to unlock and their research starts to come forth on what their landrace genetics can do, I think that is going to push more of our government to say, okay, this really and truly is an economy, can be part of our economy, and let's see how we can benefit. So it's going to be money that's going to drive it. But I think that if we look at cannabis on a global scale and not just in the United States, I think that what is going to happen in other countries, not a Canada, but other countries where these genetics can really thrive, that we'll see more of an opportunity and more of a conversation around legalization.
I think
Nicole,
I think we really need to be aware, though, and prepare ourselves for a huge letdown if federal legalization goes through. Social equity, like all these piecemeal efforts that we've had on a state level, they might be null and void. Social equity might be null and void. All the farmers market initiatives might be null and void. So if federal legalization happens and they drop the hammer on that, like the only way we're going to have interstate commerce is if you do away with all the unconstitutional shit underneath it. So if you have laws that are benefiting certain classes of people, that's unconstitutional. So we need to prepare ourselves for a huge letdown and be careful what we wish for, because I don't think anybody in California, like, if you can go back, if any of us can go back 7 years and say like, yo, we want legalization, would you do that? No, you decriminalize or you deschedule, like straight up, or you keep it the fucking way it was. Right. And so I think we all need to be aware of that shit.
Well, and I think Jason makes an excellent point of, it doesn't matter when we flip the switch. This country is not ready whatsoever for full-blown national legalization when it comes to the regulatory side, how it's going to be treated, how people who are incarcerated are going to be treated. There are so many different aspects. I mean, you look at the industrial implications of hemp. I mean, hemp was legalized in 2018. How's that gone? I mean, come on. So to bring this entire industry online with the flip of a switch is not going to happen. It's going to be a disaster. So I rarely say this. I 100% agree with Jason Beck. But I also agree with Rico. I mean, people are going to have to be ready. A lot of stuff is going to change if legalization comes. And states people have said before, oh, governors are going to fight interstate commerce because they want to keep their markets there. That's not going to happen. I'm sorry. But General Mills is not going to say, okay, I will make my cereal in every single state to put my CBD into it to sell it everywhere. That's not going to work. It's not happening. Get over it. Not happening. And so people are just going to have to realize that there are going to be massive changes to this industry if we want full legalization.
Yeah, and proof of that is how long it takes a state after they pass the law that it's legal there, right? How long the legislation takes to create all the rules, even though there are other states doing it right now that they can mirror, but it takes forever just to come
Generally, it takes 2 years to get a market up and running from the day of the vote to actually getting regs run. And we've seen in, good old New York, they've got 4 dispensaries open in the entire state.
And 1,400 illegal ones, right?
And those 4.
And we haven't even
We'll
touched on how we're going to combat the illicit market.
Right,
I mean,
we'll
it's
see.
just going to be a freak show.
How those 4 in New York fare at the end of the day, once they realize all these taxes, once they realize all these other loops they got to jump through, and they realize how much more of a governmental fascist state New York is than California. Right? Like Bloomberg fucking did away with the big gulp.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty bizarre. So guys, why should people listen to High at 9 News?
I would say people should listen to us because regardless of where you fall in the cannabis spectrum, you will find somebody there who has a voice that probably sounds like yours. And so you'll be able to relate to us and better understand where everyone is coming from. It's an opportunity to get educated and to hear different perspectives and meet other people. Frankly, a couple weeks ago, I went on a road trip with Nicole Buffon. Did I ever think I was going to be road tripping from Vegas to Phoenix with some pot loving hippie who loves medicine and this or that? No, that was not in my cards, but love her to death and so happy I did it.
Yeah.
You forgot the purple hair. You forgot the
I know the purple
Gretchen.
hair. I don't roll with a lot of people with purple hair normally.
I agree with Gretchen. I never thought that I could call a conservative my sister in this work that I do. But getting to know Gretchen and getting to know other sides of an opinion of a story it always makes me a better advocate, makes me a better person, a better human being. And I think that people should watch the show, even if you're a novice or if you're new to the industry. It doesn't matter where you fall in the spectrum. Learning and understanding what's happening currently in the industry, hearing from industry insiders, what their perspective is on the current stories, I think is just a great way to have a conversation, to start a conversation, to learn and to educate others. And when you're talking about current events, you're talking about things that are happening right now today that affects everybody. I think that this watching our show really allows people to come together, those that smoke and consume and those that don't. And, it allows us to come together and really learn from each other. And that's what being an American is about. That's what being a human being is about, learning from different perspectives and being able to take what you've learned to your homes, inside of your homes and inside to other people that you care about. I think it's important.
Right. I think people should tune in if you're interested in knowing what cannabis looks like. It looks like all of us. It looks like me, it looks like you, it looks like Jason, Gretchen, it looks like all of us. Yeah. And if you want to see and hear the truth, it's not always factual truth.
Yeah.
But if you want to see the truth of what America looks like and what cannabis looks like, that's why you should turn in.
It's the truth when I'm talking about it.
Yeah. No.
High at 9 is truly the melting pot of cannabis.
Yeah.
And I think people should watch because what I found is there is a wealth of good news. Every show, even the shows where there's a ton of bad news, there is a wealth of good news.
Right. Yeah, there's tons of bad news out there in the world. It is nice to hear good news every once in a while, don't you think?
Yes.
Well, and the fact that there is news every day shows the progress that this industry is making, that it is being discussed, that laws are happening. They may not be the greatest, but advances are coming and people are really trying to debate them and understand the best path forward.
Major headlines on mainstream outlets, right?
Yeah. Jason Beck, any final words as to why folks should listen to High at 9 News?
Well, I mean, the main reason you should watch High at 9 News or listen to High at 9 News is just to hear the different viewpoints that we all present from each different side. And regardless of what side you're on, you're going to hear something that triggers you. You're going to hear something that inspires you. You're going to hear something that you agree with, and you're going to hear something that you vehemently are opposed to. And just for that matter, I think it's healthy for all of us to make sure that we are digesting all of that on a regular basis to help us all grow as people and human beings.
Awesome. Awesome. I tell you what, I really have a lot of fun with you guys, and doing those shows in the mornings not only educates me because I've been in the space for 14 years now, and I learn something new every single day. So it is very educational, a lot of fun to really spar with you guys verbally about what's happening in the world. Jason, where do we find High at 9 News, and how can people watch?
So first of all, you can find us at highat9news.com on as our website. You can use the number numerically as for the number 9, or you can spell it out. Either way, it will take you to the exact same place. Other than that, we're on YouTube, Rumble, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific, high noon on the East Coast. And we are also a podcast. You can also download us from Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Amazon, all of the different major, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all the different things. You can download us, whether or not you can watch us or listen to us. But either way, make sure that you are tuning into us on a daily basis to make sure that you are staying current on the developing cannabis industry.
That's awesome. Well, it's been a lot of fun this morning here on TNM News. I appreciate you guys coming on board and spending a Saturday morning with me here. You can also look for High at 9 News right here at TNM News, because we're going to post a bunch of stuff that High at 9 News is doing, and we'll help promote you guys to get you out to the masses, because I do think it's important that people do hear different points of view about the cannabis plant. And like we mentioned earlier, good education always leads to good legislation. Any final words that you guys have?
When life gives you no place else to turn, you can always turn the fuck up.
Thank you, Todd, so much. This was great. Thank you for having us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I just had one thing to say in regards to Nicole's previous comments. Is anytime that you put outdoor weed and good weed in the same sentence, it is a total oxymoron. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
Because he's got friends in the triangle, right?
I'd like to finish with
friends in the triangle.
Jason's voted for sun-grown weed for best of the Emerald Cup. And thanks for having us on.
That was last year. Hold on, Matthew St. Germain. You also have to understand too is that I also ran the campaign for the winners. I ran the campaign for the winners at the judges table as well. Yes, Buy Better Gas is the name of the game. Buy Better Gas.
So you were in each other's pockets.
Listen, bro, I'm a registered federal lobbyist, and I'm very good at lobbying my cannabis constituents around a single issue.
Nice. All right. So they are High at 9 News. Check them out. highat9news.com and on all the socials every day, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and high noon on the East Coast. Check them out on YouTube and on the website and on Rumble, and get yourself educated about all things cannabis. I'm Todd Dankin with TNM News. Thanks for joining us. Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.